Good evening, everybody. My name is Louis Polito of the Belmar Public Library. Welcome to our first Author Time talk with Mary Brennan here. This is Mary Brennan is here with her new book, Eye Rolls and Awe. And she is also the author of a other book, a novel called Peace Pilgrim, Walking Her Talk Against Hate. Okay. Mary is a longtime resident of Belmar. She is a mother, an artist, a former elected official, and now an author as well. She wears a lot of hats. So your hat rack must be full there, Mary.
Yeah, it's a good life.
Oh, there you go. So before we start, I have a quick disclaimer and a few notes on ground rules tonight. Please note that this Author Time webinar will be recorded for future playback and viewing. By participating, you agree to have your likeness and audio recorded on camera for future Belmar Public Library and Belmar Borough use. Thank you. Now, we will begin with Mary's slideshow and talk about her book. She's going to tell us all about it, and then we will have a question and answer session after that. If you have a question, simply hit the raise your hand button at the bottom of the Zoom window screen there, and we will call upon you in the order in which you raise your hands. If you do not wish to be recorded, you can submit your question with your name into the Q&A button if you see farther down to the right, next to the raise hand button. And we will answer your question there for you. Without any further ado, Mary, why don't we take it away?
Okay. Well, first I want to thank Louis and Rosemary and everybody else at our gem of a public library in Belmar. It's a wonderful place run by wonderful people, and I appreciate your inviting me to launch your online author talk. I think when you actually started doing your in-person author talks was when I published my first book, and I was one of your first authors there as well. So it's just been a joy to work with you all, and I appreciate that. And I also, I've just seen the list of some of the attendees, and many of you I haven't seen in a while. So thank you so much for signing on. And for those of you who are familiar with my book, and the cast of characters in it, you'll get a kick out of it. And for those of you who aren't, I hope you enjoy this as well. I have a slideshow that's going to take 10 or 15 minutes just to give you a little insight into what the book's about, show you some pictures that are in the book, some quotes, and then we'll have Q&A. I hope you guys have questions and comments, and we'll take it from there. So let me just share my screen. All this technology. Okay. So you should, you're seeing the slides, Louis? I think.
Yes, the size, I can see the slide clear.
Okay, good. Just making sure that it's working. So as Louis said, the name of the book is Eye Rolls and Awe, and it's a national park road trip with teens. It's a little difficult to categorize the book because it is a travelogue, it's a memoir, but it also is filled with some other things that I'll talk about during the slideshow. And to give you a sort of a glance at what we did, we flew from New Jersey to Denver, and then we did a 7,000-mile loop. We took 6 weeks. We went through 10 states, the 7,000 miles, and we visited 21 national treasures and a bunch of cities and found some wonderful gems and had countless memories. And of course, it was national parks. So as we know, our national parks are natural wonders. We saw caves, we saw canyons, we saw spectacular waterfalls and amazing glaciers, trees taller than the clouds, and just the night skies like I've never seen before. It looked like a planetarium some nights. Here's just a few of the thousands of pictures that we took there throughout. Monument Valley in Arizona, Devil's Tower in Wyoming, Crater Lake, which is the deepest lake in the United States, the Grand Tetons that I figured I'd use as my screen on this webinar instead of my living room, the Badlands, and then Old Faithful, of course, in Yellowstone. And at each of these places, we learned so much, we saw so much, and we had lots of stories to tell in every area. Aside from the natural wonders, there were so many man-made wonders that we actually stepped back in history in places. Here's Lowry Pueblo in the Canyon of the Ancients, which is a collection of hundreds of ancient sites. It's the largest collection in the Americas. And this is petroglyphs in Colorado and Mesa Verde, the famous Mount Rushmore, Four Corners. We went to Alcatraz, which is a national monument. And the reason I include this smoke jumper is because we did see a lot of forest fires. I know you hear about them in the news, and they are very, very real. And the heroic smoke jumpers just embody, the firefighters embody the courage that continues in all of our national lands. We also saw wildlife galore. Most of them were in their natural environments, but I just include this one because we ran into one of the best zoos that we ever went to in a tiny neighborhood in Seattle, of all places, called the Woodland Park Zoo, that started 100 years ago, and it created natural environments, and it was sort of a leader in how to run zoos that has been copied all over the world now. We had not known about it at all, and we just happened to ride by one. You know, when you're on the road, you start looking at those brown and white little signs that tell you about historic places and natural places. And we saw a sign for the zoo, and we stopped, and it was wonderful. Of course, we did see a lot of wild animals in their environment, the bull elks and the bighorn sheeps and the buffalo, which, by the way, in Yellowstone are the only pure breeds in the world. All the other ones in the world or in America have a little cow gene in them, but in Yellowstone, they are purebred bison. Mountain goats, wild burro, as you can see, that's what I chose for the cover of my book. And the reason I include this rock squirrel is that we did see squirrels all over the place. In Grand Canyon, on top of the mountain in Yosemite, this one happened to be in Crater Lake. Believe it or not, most ER visits from anybody in the national parks from wild animal encounters is not from snakes, it's not from bears, it's not from tarantulas, it's from squirrel bites, because they come up very close and they try to get your food, and as cute as they can be, you have to stay away from them. And the great thing about going with teens is that they were always down for an adventure. So we hiked, we climbed high peaks, we crawled through ruins at times that we had to crawl through things that were 12 inches high. We explored caves, we ran rapids, we had snowball fights in July. And here's just some of the hikes and other things that we did. Grand Canyon, the rapids on the Yellowstone River, that's Yosemite. This is in Crater Lake in Oregon. This is in Mesa Verde in Colorado, and this is running through some waterfalls in Glacier, Montana. But the beautiful thing to me, I don't know if the kids believed it at the time, when they're at home, and as you know, if you're around children or have children, they normally hang out in their own circle of friends or in their room, or, you know, kind of not usually with their siblings unless they're watching TV. And even nowadays they're on their own individual screens. But with little else, they only had each other. And I have to say, sure, there were plenty of, you know, quote unquote moments, many, and I have a few of them in the book, but my kids bonded in a way that I can see to this day, and I think will remain with them for their entire lives. And we had plenty of time together. They had plenty of games of peanut poker, M&M poker. They even taught me how to play Texas Hold'em. Everywhere they went, they'd pick up sticks and just start dueling or doing things together. They'd have a goofy time, wrapping their arms around the redwood trees, plenty of time around the campfire, climbing on boulders, sitting by mountains. And actually, we had those 7,000 miles in the car. I have to tell you that that's a lot of time together in a small space. We had an SUV, but it was, you know, a lot of time, a lot of miles on the road. So we played plenty of license plate bingo. I Spied, we did radio comedy channel. And I didn't mention at the beginning, but one of the things that we decided to do was limit electronics. And a lot of people thought we were crazy, but we really wanted our kids to look out the window at the country and not at their screens. So we didn't even allow them, we didn't even have a movie player. They each had their, you know, iPods and phones. But other than that, we didn't allow data downloads or anything else. So it was pretty much finding your way and keeping ourselves entertained, which we certainly did. Beyond all that, and I have to say, it's my book and it's from my perspective. So I can guarantee you that my 3 children and my husband, Tom, probably would tell this story in a different way. But for me, I just reveled in our sweet, silly family bubble. And especially the moments that I got to spend with each of my children alone and with them together. That's my youngest son and I on top of a mountain in Mesa Verde watching an early morning sunrise after hiking for a couple of hours. This is on the rim of the Grand Canyon at a sunset. And one thing my older son did at the time, he was wrestling, he was a wrestler, and every time we went somewhere new, he would pick one of us up and do a vertical hold. You know, they certainly did plenty of wrestling, but it was kind of fun to have this picture in so many places. He has his brother, he has his, you know, so it was nice to combine like that. And that's myself and my daughter in a cave. We are in the Badlands there, swimming in resting in hot springs, another hike on the mountain. And one night when I actually went to a ranger talk and I didn't have any takers in a national park, I came back, and of course the car gets really dusty when you're traveling around. I came back and I saw that. So it, you know, who knows, maybe Tom wrote it. I have no idea, but it really, really warmed my heart. And behind every story, behind every photo rather, and every park that we went to, there were laughs and wows, some tears, but for the most part, it was magnificent. And the bottom line is, you know, along with seeing the country, the book is really just about family, about foibles, and about relationships with ourselves and with our magnificent, magnificent national parks. So that's sort of the gist of where we went and what we saw in a nutshell, although the book goes into much more depth and tells a lot more stories about each place and our interactions. But you might you might ask yourself, you know, sounds like a great trip, but why did she write that book? And especially in the midst of a COVID pandemic? Well, I'll tell you why. There's actually 3 interconnected reasons that I personally think were vital to share. For those of you who know me well, and even, you know, some of you who don't, I have been writing about the environment and health for decades in many different facets. And I'm a research geek, and I try to stay really current with the latest research about environment and health. And over the last few years, I've actually seen the skyrocketing risks among our kids, as well as the destruction and threats to the environment. But my research, in conjunction with writing this book, actually gives me a lot of hope, and in each of the 3 areas, and I'll show you. The first one is parent-teen connections. And yes, I know about hormones. I know about crazy schedules. I know, you know, that it can be really difficult. But the latest research shows, and there's been a lot of it, that when moms and dads and caretakers are involved with their teens' lives, even when the kids push back, they not only do better socially, emotionally, and academically, they're also far less likely to engage in risky or harmful behavior. And this is really crucial because right now, suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death in teens and young adults. and drug use has been on a phenomenal rise. So, of course, many factors are involved in this, and there are many, many, many great parents who endure these tragedies. So I'm not saying anything about that, but what I am saying is that we as parents should do everything we can to spend time with our teens. In fact, it's so important that the World Health Organization named family connectedness as one of its top protective factors linked with youth well-being. The second thing, as we all know, it's old news that a walk in the woods is great exercise and it's lovely. But the latest research is showing some phenomenal impacts of spending time in nature. It's showing that it increases mood, improves mood, it can foster creativity, it can accelerate recovery from surgery or illness. It helps kids with ADHD focus better and learn more. The studies are really fascinating, and there's thousands of them at this point, and it keeps getting, more and more and more into the mainstream. Recent studies have shown that time in nature works better than antidepressants. The Wall Street Journal just had a big story last week about spending 2 hours a week outdoors is probably the best stress reducer that you can have while living during a pandemic. And what's even more fascinating is the latest research shows that the phytochemicals emitted by trees can even prevent certain kinds of cancer by upping our killer fighter cells in our own bodies. So that research is really early, and I'm excited to keep following it. But it's just clear that going out for a walk or doing a little bit outside is great, not only for your kids, but for all of us. And the final element that I looked at was the future of our parks. The United States has over 400 national parks and other public lands, which is fabulous. They belong to us. Every one of us, every citizen owns that land. And these places, as you all know, are already threatened by politics, by climate change, but a huge threat that not many people are talking about. Visitation to these parks is at record highs. You hear stories of, RVs lined up and cars lined up, but most visitors to our public lands have gray hair and wrinkles. They are not young people. So unless our young people are introduced to these areas, they won't have it in them to save and preserve these lands when the time comes. And we don't want to see them turned into shopping malls and blacktop or anything else. So when a parent helps ignite their children's love affair with all of our natural gems, it's not only good for the kids, it's really great for these precious spaces. So our road trip brought all three of these together. And recently AAA came out and said, road tripping is going to be the key to travel in at least the next year or two because of the pandemic. Even if we all get vaccinated and everything else, that road trips are a way to travel. So between all of that, that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to tell the story, and it's a really fun travelogue, and I had a great time. But the main thing behind it is to encourage other people. I'm not saying to take a summer, and many people can't, but even a few days or walk in the woods with your kids, once a week or something, it really, really will make a difference in many, many ways. Besides the latest scientific research, there's a whole section on it in the book. I do share the latest research and give resources. The book is filled with maps. It shows where we went, how we got there. It has info on every park that we visited. It also has, I guess you get it by now, I'm a pretty much of a research geek. It has tidbits on the science and nature and history of all the places we went. And some of it's really, I love learning about this, and it was really cool. So I wanted to share it. And it also has travel tips. And a lot of them are just general, but many of them are focused on traveling with teens. So that, in a nutshell, is the book and why I wrote it. And as I have on the back of it, carving out an adventure with teens is not only doable, it can be transforming for our kids, for us, for our national treasures. So I will stop my slideshow right now and come back to the main screen. I think I was nervous and I talked too fast, but I hope you got all that.
Everything seemed fine from my end over here. I hope everyone is enjoying this so far. Just a quick note, if anyone is interested in getting Mary's book, we do have it here at the library for checkout, and it is available for purchase. If you go to Mary's website at marybrennan.com, there'll be links there to Amazon and other places where you can order the book. So let's open up this thing. Does anybody have any questions they want to start with? I see we have one. There you are. Okay. A lot of talk. There you go. All right. Okay. Katrina.
Hello.
Oh,
Good
Katrina.
evening. This is Katrina Klapsis. Thank you. This is wonderful. Mary, it is so good to see you. By the way, I love your
Hi.
hair. I like
This is my COVID hair.
exactly. It looks good on you. God bless you.
Oh, hold on. I accidentally muted you. All right, go ahead. Unmute yourself. I gotta mute me.
I'm very excited about this book, Mary, because I just have to tell you that when I was 11 years old and my sibling, I was the youngest of four, my sister was 17. So we ranged in age from 11 to 17. And my brother was the only boy, so his best friend was allowed to come. So my family did this exact.
Oops. Muted again.
Me? Hi. Okay. Hi.
Oh, there you go.
We're
I'm
trying
sorry.
to get you as a panelist so we can get some video if you would like to be on video.
Okay.
So go, we're just gonna.
You want me to put the video on also?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi.
There you
Here
go.
we are, me and
Guys.
Eugene. Hi.
Hi, Jean. Hi, Trina.
Hi. Well, we did the same trip and there was 7 of us in a station wagon from New Jersey. And we went all the way across and we did all the national parks. And I got to tell you that the gift that you gave your children and of course yourself is beyond measure, because my family, I'm 64 years old and my siblings and I, that was an astounding thing to happen and to be involved in. It gave us a love of our country and nature and beauty. And it's awe-inspiring. I mean, it is, I love the word you use, awe-inspiring. And we had the eye rolls, of course, there was no electronics or anything back then, no air conditioning in our vehicle, riding through the deserts at 100-degree heat. But what a gift you gave your family, Mary. And with the writing of this book, I can't wait to read it because it's going to bring back so many more memories. And Eugene and I did very similar trips when we were in our 30s. We went out twice and we spent a month both times out west doing the parks and stuff. A fabulous thing. I just really appreciate this. I was so excited when I heard about it, just because it just brought back so many memories for me. And when did you do this? When did this actually occur?
We actually did it in 2008.
2008. And your children were how old?
They were 12, 14, and 16.
Bingo. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And it's a priceless gift that you gave. And I've never recovered from that, if you will, in a good way. In a good way. And we've stood on the rim of the Grand Canyon and you look and you just go, it just brings you just so much. And I thank you. It's great to be here. I love seeing you, Mary. And
We'll see each other
I
in
can't
person.
wait to read your book.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, thank you, Katrina. We're going to take you up right there. What do we do?
Make it to invite to attendee.
Okay, boom. Okay, Sharon. Panelist. Okay, Sharon. Gonna go to allow to talk. There you go.
Nope. So you just double check yourself. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Hang on a second.
Sorry, first time, everybody.
Little. What am I doing here?
Who's speaking first? You can-
Sharon Russell.
Yep, so make her a
Okay,
disabled talking, and we'll come back to her
okay, there
later.
you go. We're gonna
Thank you,
come.
Kate, we'll come back to you.
Kate, we'll come back to you. Okay, Sharon, go ahead, unmute yourself. And we're going to,
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Sharon.
Sharon, you
This
can
of-
start your video if you want as well.
Oh, okay. See, there we go. Oh,
Hey.
there we
Someone
go.
not only who knows the characters, but grew up with them. So
Exactly, exactly. Her oldest is the same age as my daughter, so they went to school together and shared many. Actually, they went to several schools together, so
Right.
that was something that they shared. But reading the title of your book reminded me of one of our family trips. I will never forget it. And my parents were always the kind that really didn't tell us too much in advance. It was just like, okay, guess what? We're going somewhere. And I remember I was 12, so it was probably the same year, that our two kids actually took a trip. I was 12, my sister was 7, and my other sister was 2. And they piled all 3 of us and my parents into a Volkswagen Beetle,
Oh gosh.
and we drove to Canada.
Woo-hoo.
No air conditioning, just a radio, AM, FM, that was it. But I still remember it all these years later.
Yeah.
So I'm sure your kids will be doing exactly the same. But my question to you is, can you describe one of the funniest moments that took place? And then one that you thought was maybe the most meaningful, that you think the kids really got something out of?
Good questions. There were so many funny times. And I hate to say it, the 2 funniest, one was at my expense and the other was at Tom's expense. But I guess I won't rat him out. I'll just do the one that was at my expense. There really were quite a few. Even to this day, we just can mention a few words and laugh our heads off. It bit me, or something like that. So when we were walking through a trail in Mesa Verde, and the terrain is really pretty rugged, the beauty of the natural environment there actually are these there's stone sculptures everywhere you go, created by the master. And some of them look like people, some of them look like, monkeys, some of them and you have to squeeze through some of them as you're climbing, getting down. So I squeezed through one. And of course, when you're walking, you're eating a lot of trail mix, you're doing all that. I had digestive issues at that moment. And a bit of wind escaped me in a really loud way, right as I came around a bend. And my family heard it and were crying. They were laughing so hard. And right then, most of the trails we went on were not crowded, but 2 people happened to come through right behind me. And so I, being the great mother I am, went, "Sean, why did you do that?" He went, "I didn't do it, Mom, you did." And that was, there was stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
Funny stuff like that.
Uh,
I would say the most meaningful, and it's not because what I noticed that was for each of us, it was different. I mean, Huron got to the redwoods, and at least as far as my memories, and I see he's on the call, so I hope he chimes in because I'm sure his are way different. But he was really felt those redwoods, and I did too. But I got to the Grand Canyon, even what Trina said, and I was so moved by this great expanse. I think the most meaningful was that sense of how little we are in the universe, yet how connected we are to everything. And for each person in the family, I think it happened at different moments. So that would,
yeah, I can remember also, I also went through the Sequoia and the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. I did most of a lot of the places that you mentioned, but I remember, I think we were in the Sequoia Park, and I had found, and I know you're not allowed to take anything out of the parks,
right. Right.
And so there was a pine cone that literally was
Oh,
about,
It's big,
right,
Yeah.
right. It was enormous. And the teacher in me, I found a ranger and I said, look, I would never take this without asking. I said, but I would love to be able to show this to my students because seeing is believing. And they're not going to believe because I've taken pine cones from the house and they're like 5 inches long, but you know, to see something that's a foot long. And he gave me permission. He wrapped it up in newspaper and I brought it home and I used it every year of teaching to show them what something really could look like, because seeing, as I said, seeing is believing. So again, this visual journey that your family went on is something they'll never forget.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Before we go to the next one, we're going to go to our first question in the Q&A. This is from Leonard. He asks, what inspired you to take this trip?
Oh gosh, I love to travel and had always wanted to take my kids traveling. We did little trips. I went as a mom with each of them separately to places, but this came about as the beginning of the book says. My daughter and I, we were all home on a snow day, and my daughter said, "Hey, why don't we go away this summer? Just you and me." And it grew from there, from this sort of, have fun on a wintry day into something real. And then when it finally became we were really doing this, everybody was on board and we did it. And my husband he recently retired, but he was a school teacher. So even though he had a summer job, he was able to switch things around. He had to work a summer job, but he was able to switch things around. When my daughter and I first planned it, we were going for 10 weeks, the whole summer. When the whole family became part of this, it morphed into 6 weeks, but we wound up being able to do a lot more and Trina said she drove cross country. We actually were able to do more by flying out and doing a circle out there where there are the biggest concentration of parks.
Okay, great. So we're going to go to the next one. Kate, you're next. 1 second. We're going to,
Oh my God.
here we go. Excuse me. All right, Kate.
Lish. Kate is in my book because Kate is a friend who used to live in San Francisco. I haven't seen her in years, but when we were out there, she was the person I was visiting when I had a meltdown.
I was going to ask if the pictures were ever recovered.
No, never.
No.
Over 800 pictures were never recovered. So, and for anybody else that doesn't know what that refers to, you have to read the book then.
Oh, you're mean.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I wanted to ask that question, if you ever found them.
Nope,
Because,
never got them back. Lost.
I have been fortunate enough to live near so many of these areas that you visited. I lived in Northern California, I lived in Central California, and now I live in Sedona. And, some of the most amazing natural places on the planet. And what you said about, being the natural prescription, the natural antidote to so many things that plague us is so true. And living where you're right now, where I live, I am surrounded by national forest.
Oh, beautiful.
I live in this little rural enclave, and there's a smallish city near, Sedona is a smallish city, but I live out in the country and I'm literally surrounded by national forest.
Ooh.
And the energy is so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And for years I was a city girl. I lived right in San Francisco. I lived, right in the cities. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that is not the place where our energies really grow and where we really can relax and settle and learn. It really is when we are out in the wilds. The wilder, the better. So I think your book is very timely and very important because, as you said, You know, here in Sedona, it's a little bit different. We get a lot of younger people, especially around spring break. It's crazy.
Right.
But introducing younger people who are so caught up in the technology, who can be so caught up in the FOMO and, you know, fear of missing out and those sorts of things, to get out and be able to be and soak up more of this natural world is so important. So I'm so glad you wrote this book.
Thank
And
you.
I'm so glad the story made it into the book. And you really have to read the book because it's, Mare was just beside herself.
I was. But thank you for being there. And I will
Yeah.
come. back to it. More than-
I think I've seen you at two of your worst moments in your life.
I think you have.
And glad I could be there for you, but I'm sorry, God, you missed the pictures, but I'm so glad you were able to write this book and
Yeah.
inspire people to
Thank
get out and be in the wilds, if you will.
Yeah. Thanks. And thanks for dialing in. I'm so happy
Oh.
to see you.
I know, good to see you
catch up.
too.
All righty. Bye.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, I'm going to switch to the next question on the question answer. We're going to go just back and forth. Troy wanted to know, what year did you take this trip?
2008.
2008. All right. So,
You know, it's interesting. I thought about that a little bit. And then, of course, because I'm a research geek,
Mhm.
because of what I've been learning about kids, the environment and everything, I really wanted to tell the story. And I thought, but my kids are, you know, older. It was a while ago. And then I researched, and the woman, Cheryl Strayed, who wrote Wild, she actually wrote that best-selling book 15 years after she went. You know, it's not unusual for these books to happen after a time. So it steeps for a while, I think, and you can tell a better story when you're a little removed from it.
also hindsight gets you a chance to really think more
Yeah.
through the meeting and all that. Absolutely. Okay, so Rich Held, you're next. 1 second, we're going to get you up and running. Where are you? What happened to Rich? Oh, there he is. Here he is. Okay. 1 second, Rich, if you can unmute and you can go ahead and start your video. There you are, Rich.
Hey, Rich. Hey, Elaine.
You just have to unmute yourself, Rich. Just go ahead and unmute yourself. Can you, there you go. If you can unmute yourself, Rich, then we can hear you. There you go.
Okay.
Congratulations, Mary.
Yeah, good to see you, Mary. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have two questions. One, did you map out your trip beforehand, or did you just kind of follow the road? And I know you a little bit, and I can see you following the road. But and secondly, did you do any camping? And if you did, any camping stories you want to share?
We did a lot of camping. Just to get back to your first question, we did map out almost the whole entire trip because we had, you know, if I could just hop in a van right now and take off, I'd be so happy without having any destination. But honestly, when you have kids and they're hungry, you know, it's wandering around within a specific amount of time is better. And particularly, and I give some tips in the book, you really have to gauge your own comfort level about that. And many of the national parks, their campgrounds and their lodgings sell out if you don't book in advance.
Right.
And we found that out, and we even didn't get to some of the places. I mean, we started booking in March and left in July. 4 months was not enough to go to some of the places we wanted to go. So
Right.
for the most part, we did book. We camped in almost every park, state park. The only time we didn't camp is when we were on the road in between. We'd stay in motels, and we didn't book in time to be able to camp in Grand Canyon. So we had one of their basic cabins, the basic lodge.
Were you on the north rim or south rim of the
We were on
canyon?
the south rim. Yeah, but even the north rim was sold out at that time. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, it's popular. And so we had tons of really fun camping stories. Just, you know, you live in this tent and There's one in the book about, the kids fooling around at night, and then we're around the campfire a lot. And again, without the electronics, you just find a way to have fun, have games, have a good time. And we did.
I would say one of our stories is about 7 years ago, we decided to go to Kansas, where my son and his family lives, with my daughter and her 3 little children. I think there were like 3, 5, and 7, and we vowed never to do it again. But now they're older, so.
Yeah,
Right. I think, that's why teenagers is, it had its challenges too, but they weren't little. So,
Yes.
and the one thing that I do say in the book, which is pretty funny, when you have 3, it is, when you have a family of 5, there's always one person who's a tiebreaker when people want to do different things or camp in a different campsite. And that those dynamics can get pretty funny too. So.
Yep. That's it.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. So we're going to go to a question real quick. Sarah asks, and here's a good one. What was your writing process? Did you take notes during the trip? So many conversation details. I wondered if you kept notes during the trip.
Yeah, my son asked me the same thing when he told me that I didn't capture him well. No, I'm kidding. He told me I captured everyone else fine, but him, no. I kept a journal. I've been keeping journals my whole life. I write for a living and have always kept notes, kept journals. I did not record dialogue or keep dialogue journals. As a creative writer, I added those in based on, I don't remember exactly what people said years ago, but knowing the characters and knowing the situation, I recreated a lot of that dialogue. So my writing process was to go through all of those journals, and they were many, many, many filled with tiny handwriting and my notes of the joys, the not so joys, the sort of impact that the natural environment had on me. And then as someone who researches and does a lot of research writing for a living, I did a lot of research. I actually did research to find out about things that even though I sort of knew, I wanted to make sure the history of every park and the geology of every park and where we were going and the history of the towns that we drove through and the cities that we stayed in. So it was a combination of using my notes, doing research along the way, and then pulling it all together as a writer, which is my craft and my trade. And I, hopefully have done it well enough to engage you in the book.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Next up is Ann Kelly. 1 second, we're going to get you up and running here. There she is. And if you could go ahead and unmute yourself, and we're going to start your video and we can see you.
Hi, Ann.
What am I looking at? Oh, there I am. Hey.
Ann and her sister hike with me now, so
That's
we can
right.
hike together.
Yeah. Couple of questions for you. One is, did you map out ahead? Like, did you have a sweet spot of how much you wanted to drive each day? Did you have mega days of driving? Or?
We did. We actually decided up front that we did not want to drive more than 5 or 6 hours a day, just having the 3 kids in the car. There were 2 days that we had to go, I think 9 hours and 10 hours, and only those 2 days. And especially towards the end, when we had been on the road for over a month, we knew that we'd be sick of being in the car, and we planned things closer together. So we more or less, I mean, we variated, like, as I said, we saw the zoo and we stopped there and we went to places that we hadn't anticipated. But for the most part, we did map out distances.
Yeah, because Julie and I took a little road trip and we figured out that there was only a certain amount we wanted to drive each day. Otherwise, it sort of takes away from the whole experience.
Right, because you get
yeah, sick of the road. The other thing is, did you sort of change anything on the fly and decide to go someplace you hadn't even thought about just because it sort of struck your fancy or?
A couple. We did have a few little stops that we hadn't even known about, let alone planned ahead of time. And that was sort of the wonderful surprise in the country that, I can't say we rambled down side roads for, days on end, but we did sort of see things and say, oh, this looks really cool. Let's go there. So we did a couple of those. We did a few of those.
Great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I hope we'll be out there again.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you, Ann. All right, question here. Sean asks, how long did it take you to write the book?
Probably a good year. Probably the better. I mean, it had been in the back of my mind for a while as I've been doing other kinds of writing and healthcare writing and environmental writing. It had been in the back of my mind, but as things opened up, and particularly with the pandemic, I really wanted to get it done. I mean, I hadn't worked on it specifically and regularly because I have a lot of other projects and things I'm work on, but I knew that I wanted to get it done and publish it by the end of the year, and I met my goal. So I was really happy about that.
Oh, okay, great. Someone has a question here. I'm going to bring him on. Go ahead. Kieran, you're next. Popping up, here he comes. Now, if you can go ahead and just unmute yourself, Kieran.
Kieran lives on a mountaintop now in North Carolina. So,
hey.
Hey, hi, Jackie. Hi, Kieran. So this is what my son Kieran looks like now.
Hi.
His partner, Jackie.
So my question is, what's the other worst part of your life?
That Kate brought up.
Yeah,
But
Oh.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding.
The other worst moment she was with me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that offline.
Don't worry about it.
Board.
I really don't have any questions about the book, but I do want to say that anyone who's logged into this Zoom meeting and everything like that, the book is great, and you should get yourself a copy if you haven't done so already.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I've been to pretty much every place that we visited on this trip at least like 5 times since we took the trip in 2008. And I definitely would not have done that if I hadn't gone on this vacation with my family at such a young age. And I mean, everything that she was talking about, you specifically mentioned when I saw the redwoods for the first time. And then you went on to speak about just that feeling of like, we are so insignificant, but there's definitely a role that we all play at the same time, when you're in the scope of nature like that. And I just really appreciate that you raised me and your other children, to feel that way. And
Okay, Louis, we have to save this clip, right?
Yeah. This is going to be recorded. It's all recorded. So we'll get
nice. And so regardless of whether you have or haven't been to the parks, it's a great book to read. And even if not for anything more than you don't know my mom and you want to know what her family life was like, and so you could just be like a creep about it. That's cool. Get yourself a copy.
Okay. Well, good to see you, honey.
Yeah, you too, Mom.
Yeah, be well. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Kieran.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, next.
I should have asked him if he had any different recollections, because I think he probably does, but that would be a second book.
Okay, we have a question here. Suzanne wants to know, did you all have the same interest in camping out, or did you stay in comfortable sleeping conditions most of the time?
We camped most of the time, partially because that's what we wanted to do. We did stay in, I thought camping was comfortable. I'm not sure that the hotels were nice. They were a nice respite. As I mentioned earlier, we were really pretty strict about not using devices or there were times that we couldn't enforce that and everybody needed their own space and time. But the hotels gave the kids a chance to just lay on the bed because we were busy. We did a lot of activity. So it was just sort of a downtime. And when they did that, if we stayed in a town, I'd walk around, you know, looking in little shops and things like that. So I got some alone time. They got time on the bed watching TV, and Tom napped, you know, whatever anybody wanted to do. But for the most part, we all wanted to camp. We enjoyed it. And there's something about being outside. I'm not saying it's the most comfortable to sleep in a tent on a mattress, but there's really something magical about being outside under the stars that are, you know, unless you've really seen the Milky Way on a clear night. For those of us that live in Belmar in particular, or along the shore, there's so much light pollution. I have a little section in the book about dark skies, and it is a serious environmental issue. We never really see bright stars on the East Coast. But when you're in some of these parks, and when you're in the you know, in the West, it is like being in a planetarium. It's magical being out there. And there's something about sitting around a fire, looking at the stars. Even, you know, we joked and we told stories and we did things, but even if we didn't do that and we just sat there, it was so fabulous. And I don't think you can get that by sitting in a hotel room, or, you know, going out to dinner in a restaurant and then going to bed in a comfortable bed in a hotel room. So we had a nice mix.
I could definitely agree with you on that, because, you know, there'd be times I would go visit my brother out in Albuquerque. We would go camping a lot in northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and the beauty of the night sky with the Milky Way literally moving right over you.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning, and it really wakes you up as to how little we see out here in the East Coast right there. So absolutely, I definitely can agree with you.
That was another piece of it, not just the night sky.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a lot of things that my kids never would have been exposed to. Even myself, I'm saying my kids, but you know, we saw the way people lived on some of the reservations. We saw the way people lived in areas that we're not used to. And we constantly, as we were driving, said, what do people do out here? How do they make a living? What's it like living out here? Which I'm sure they do when they come to us. I mean, it's just natural. But it broadens your horizons, and it really opens up your eyes to ways. And you know, there's so many differences in our world today, and you can see how when you're at these places, people are people. We're all the same, and we live on the same earth. You know, there's something about it that really brings you a sense of connectedness rather than separateness.
Especially when you do it around, when you're all together at the campfire. And I mean, s'mores and marshmallows also is a big
lots of s'mores. Right.
Okay, we're going to go to our next thing. Is Leonard has a question over here. We're going to bring him on. You ready, Leonard? There he is. We're going to, if you could just unmute and go to video where you can see you. Go ahead, Leonard. Go unmute yourself. Let's give it a second while he does his thing.
Maybe tap the screen if you don't see the controls.
Let's see here. Oh. All right, maybe there's a problem with Leonard. Why don't we go ahead and move on?
Leonard, raise your hand again, and we'll come back to you. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go on to Julie. Okay, so Julie Kelly is next. In 1 second, she'll come up. Okay, Julie, if you could unmute yourself. And we're going to, you can start your video, and then we can see you.
Hi, Julie. Now, Julie and Andy are world travelers, so they know a lot about traveling. You have to unmute yourself.
I did. Now I did.
There you go.
I couldn't let you hear my sister and not hear from me too, so I had to get on here.
And they're twins, in case you didn't know.
You were talking about the future of travel in the next year or so being road trips, and that's certainly what we're thinking of. We're even thinking about maybe a ski road trip in the wintertime, you know, going out west and doing a bunch of different mountains. And yeah, you're welcome to come along. And it's what you said about though planning in advance, because I don't think we could just stroll up to the mountain and say, hello, we're here, and they'll be ready to accommodate us. So we'll have to do that. So we've got the road trip bite. How about you? Are you planning another one anytime soon?
Well, my husband recently retired, and we are. You know, we need to make sure everybody's vaccinated. Our first road trip, to be honest with you, as I mentioned, my son Kiran lives on a mountaintop in North Carolina, and we haven't visited him. We haven't seen his place. So that would be our first road trip, and we can't wait to take it and then do some hiking down in Shenandoah and Smokies and things like
Oh,
that.
sounds great.
And then my youngest son lives just in the summer, moved to San Francisco. So that would be another cross-country tour. And that would be the kind of thing, because we wouldn't have to be on a schedule or, you know, necessarily be constricted to a certain amount of time.
Yeah, that's great.
Which I'm really looking forward to.
Well, can't wait to read the book.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Okay, Julie, thank you very much. I've got a question here from Aileen. Hi, Mary. Can you talk about the process of getting your book published? And if you already covered this, I'll find out later. She got tuned in late. So, but you want to know how the publishing process goes?
Yeah, thanks for asking. How are you, Aileen? Actually, I'm in a collective with some other writers, and we use a small indie publishing. I don't want to make this a workshop about traditional versus indie publishing, but there was a lot of reasons that many authors are leaning towards the indie publishing now. And so it is a tiny independent press called Riding the Waves, and it's a print on demand service. So basically when people order books right now, as Lewis said, or I guess he will say, it's available through Amazon. My first book is available through Barnes and Nobles. It was in brick and mortar stores. And for, I guess, with the pandemic and everything else, it's only in a couple of places now. I have not done that with this book. I will see once things lift in the pandemic, what, you know, where it will be. But for now, it is on Amazon. And if you want to talk offline at all, it's very easy to get access to independent presses now.
Okay, great. We have another question from Anne. Hi, Mary. Thanks so much for sharing your adventures. We hope to do a similar trip with our grandkids in a few years. Really looking forward to getting your book as a reference. So nice to see you. Stay well. So she's a nice little...
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Anne.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions? Raise your hands or anything? No, no hands. Okay, so far so good. Well, we're at the 7:58 mark, so we're almost at an hour. Mary, I want to thank you for being part of our very first Author Time video. We're proud to have you. And we also, once again, want to let everyone know, if you're interested in reading and buying her book, it is available on Amazon. You can go to her website, marybrennan.com, for the links to get there quickly. We also have the library, the book here as part of our collection, if you want to check it out as well. Quick reminder for everyone that this is the first of a series. We'll be announcing new authors in the near future as we line them up, and we look forward to having you join us for those as well. Mary, any last comments or things you want to say before we sign off?
No, I'm just so excited to have the book finally published, and I thank you guys for taking the time, especially people I haven't seen in a while. There's so many familiar names that I'm seeing here. I didn't have a chance to really look before, but thanks for taking an hour, and I hope to see all of you in person soon. And I do notice that my two boys are on as well, and thank you guys. My heart revolves around you and your sister, and I just really feel blessed to have our family. So thanks.
Okay, great. Everyone.
Thank you, Lewis.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Everybody, one final thing, follow us on Facebook for all the latest updates. Our website is being updated with the new events as we get them lined up. Any questions, comments, you can always email us at library@belmar.com or call us at 732-681-0775. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.